Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Sweden and we're going to head up towards Gothenburg once again. Göteborg, as you would say in Swedish, the Swedish craft beer capital up there on the west coast. Got to get that Gothenburg catchphrase in, of course, when we're reviewing a Gothenburg beer. A little bit of a trial tradition these days. And for this review we are going to return to a brewery that you've seen me review many things from before, although this is a style that I haven't touched upon too much from them here on the channel. So for this one then we are going to go to the Gamlestaden area of the city and we're having a look at yet another beer from Spike Brewery. So this one is called the Madizm. It comes in at 5% ABV and they're describing this one as a fruity sour with raspberry, passion fruit and mango. From what I understand, this beer is a little bit more like a Berliner Weiss, but they don't say that explicitly on the cans, so we'll go with their description and then we'll talk about that when we actually taste the beer. But very curious to see how this one turns out. This is only the second or maybe third sour beer that I've reviewed from these guys here on the channel. The very first sour that I tried from them I actually tried at the brewery, and you can see my review of that in my Out and About video that I did at Spike Brewery. So go and check the Out and About playlist, you can have a little look at that. Their tap room that they have is quite nice. It's a bit of a shame that it's only open a couple of days of the week actually, but yeah, it's definitely worth a visit if you find yourself in Gothenburg. And when it comes to Gothenburg craft breweries, Spike Brewery would always be one of the ones that I would recommend. If you ever see a beer with the word business in the name from Spike Brewery, you are in for a little bit of a treat with that. These guys mainly brew the kind of big hazy IPAs. They've had a few West Coasters and black IPAs over the last little while, and they also do some nice imperial stouts, and I have to say I am curious to see what they're going to do with the sour beers over the next little while. But yeah, really nice brewery in Gothenburg, and one that I would recommend that you check out if you're interested, one in Gothenburg beer and two in Swedish craft beer. I've had some really good things from these guys over the last 2.5 years or something like that. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out, and hopefully you guys enjoy my take on this beer as well. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Spike Brewery before, and you will no doubt see more added to that list in the fairly near future. There's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlist of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Spike Brewery then, on to my brewery notes. So as I've told you before, Spike Brewery are based in Gothenburg, Göteborg, up on the Swedish west coast, and the company was founded back in 2014 by Mats Vesberg, Marcus Axberg and Martin Johansson. All three of these guys had worked previously in the IT industry, but it's now only Mats and Marcus that are still active in the company, and they've now been joined by David de Sursi, who joined the company and became the CEO. The main brewer is Bernardo Hava. He comes from Brazil and he trained in brewing at VLB in Berlin. And he joined the company back in 2017, so pretty much all of the beers that you see from these guys are his recipes. And I have to say, he is quite a talented brewer actually. Hopefully when we do a Meet the Brewery video with Spike Brewery, we can get Bernardo on for a little bit. I think that would be really quite fun actually. But at the moment these guys are producing around 250,000 litres of beer per year, and about 25% of that total volume is used for contract brewing other breweries' beers. There's many gypsy breweries and stuff in the Gothenburg area, and quite a few breweries as well who can't simply brew enough of their own beer. Quite a few of them are in very small premises. But as I mentioned to you earlier, this brewery can be found in the Gamlestaden area, and they've got an on-site tap room which opens up on Saturdays. It also serves food as well sometimes, and at the moment they are looking at opportunities to build their own brewery. And as of November 2020, when I'm reviewing this beer for you, they've produced around 95 different kinds of beer. So they're always producing new stuff. You will always get a couple of beers released from Spike Brewery through the Lokalis Moskaligt assortment in Systembolaget, and I think there are a couple of them that are released only in the Gothenburg area actually. So the next time I make it up to Gothenburg, I do need to have a look at one of the bigger see Stembolaget's there and just see what treats we can have, because I know there's a few breweries like Bearded Rabbit and stuff like that where their stuff doesn't really come outside of the kind of Gothenburg county area, if you like. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Spike Brewery for the moment. Like I said, a brewery that I would highly recommend if you're interested in Gothenburg and Swedish beer. So yeah, let's leave it at that for the history section of the video. If you want to learn more, you can check out the brewery website, you can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all of the different beers that these guys have done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this beer then. So the artwork on this one is very, very nice. As you can see, it's got that kind of graffiti style to it there, which I think is very, very cool. If I remember rightly, I think this beer was maybe released as part of the Lokalis Moskalid in October, so I think I've had this one sitting for a little while, but you know, with it being a Berliner Weisse, it will be absolutely fine, to be honest with you. But yeah, this one is a 5% fruity sour, as they're calling it. As I say, we'll talk about whether it's a Berliner Weisse in the tasting section, but this one is brewed with raspberry, passion fruit and mango, so this should have a really nice balance between the different fruits actually. But yeah, there at the bottom you can see the kind of spike symbol, if you like. This is the kind of symbol that these guys often use on their labels, but this is a 330ml can, and I suspect that I would have paid somewhere in the region of maybe 35 or 40 Swedish kroners for this, so about £3.50, €4, something like this. And for a sour beer, for a Berliner Weisse, that's not too much. And at 5% ABV, you know, it is about what you would expect from one of these big kind of fruity sour beers. But yeah, let's get this guy out then, and we'll get on with the taste. And very curious to see what this beer has in store for us. So let's get it out and into the glass. There we go. Oh, colour of this is lovely, look at that. It's almost like Iron Brew colour. For those of you who don't know, Iron Brew is a Scottish soda drink. If we're using the international English, a Scottish fizzy juice as we call it. Yeah, there's no sediment on the bottom of the can. I'm a bit surprised with that actually. So maybe, it does say on the side here that it contains Vete og Havre and lactose. So yeah, wheat, oats and lactose. So yeah, I'm not sure exactly what kind of style of sour beer this one's going to be, but we can talk about that when we're actually tasting it. So you can see that this beer, when we poured it, it had about a 2/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of slightly tinged creamy coloured head there. I'm not sure exactly what tinge it has if we put the light through it. It's yeah, it does have a wee bit of a kind of coloured tinge to it, but the light, the colour of this beer is really surprising. It really is like, it's almost like a kind of orangey amber, like a West Coast IPA, to be honest with you. It does have a little bit of that kind of bright, at the same time that it does have a little bit of that bright kind of candied orange sort of thing, like you would get from Iron Brew. The colour of this beer is quite confusing actually. The beer does have a good degree of haze to it. Again, it's that sort of natural level of haze that you might get from, say, like a German Helles or you know, a West Coast IPA. It's got that kind of level of thing to it. If you were looking at this beer blindly, you might well think that this probably was a West Coast IPA, or maybe a Czech Leitsak lager actually would be the other one that it looks a little bit like. So yeah, lovely, bright, kind of almost orangey, blood orangey amber colour this one. Had a nice little bit of head when we poured it. So yeah, if this one is a Berliner Weisse, it's not your typical one in terms of its appearance, because normally you'd expect these beers to be a lot more hazy than this. But yeah, I think maybe their description of a fruity sour might be more apt, but we'll find out when we taste the thing. But certainly looks a very nice beer. Let's have a closer look at the aroma and just see how we get on with this one. Ooh, that is very nice. That is very nice. So straight away with this one, you can smell everything kind of goes together. This one smells a little bit like a fruit punch. I mean, none of the fruits really kind of stand out individually. They all kind of just mash together and sort of just make everything really interesting actually. It smells just a little bit like a fruit salad, to be honest with you. So when you take the aroma in, you do get a little bit of a sharp kind of raspberry note out of this one. You will get the tartness in this beer, I think, most definitely comes from the the kind of raspberry part as well. So yeah, you do get the other tropical notes in there too, which is quite interesting for sure. So yeah, I think the mango, on that whole fruity sort of thing that you're getting, the mango I think is giving you a little bit of the kind of, the mango's really giving you the softer side of the fruit. But you've also got a little bit of that stronger note from the passion fruit in there as well. To me, the raspberry and the mango stick out quite a bit, but the passion fruit I think takes a little bit of a back seat, to be honest with you. I've always considered passion fruit to be quite a big, pungent fruit in terms of its aroma and flavour. But yeah, I think for me, the mango and the raspberry stick out in this one, to be honest with you, but they're all noticeable. They are all definitely noticeable there. So the raspberry, as I say, is giving you the tartness. The mango, I think, is giving you the slightly more kind of soft fruitiness, and I think the passion fruit, there is just a little bit of the passion fruit pungency sitting in the background with this beer. So yeah, the aroma of this one, I think, is really quite interesting. So yeah, the fruity side of this beer comes across very, very nicely, and it does come across as more sort of, it's got a balance between the oiliness and the juiciness, to be honest with you. So yeah, on the malty side of things then, the beer does have a little bit of that kind of yogurty, petit filou sort of thing coming out underneath. The oats, of course, are going to give you a little bit. The oats will make the kind of tropical side of the fruits just smell that little bit kind of smoother and creamier, to be honest with you as well, so you can really get that out of this beer for sure. On the I would say on the kind of the wheaty side of things, you do get a little bit of a wheaty bitiness out of this beer, but mainly I would say the malt base comes across as being really smooth and oaty. You definitely get the lactose giving the oats that sort of more yogurty, petit filou type thing, and as I say, just a little bit of a bitey wheatiness in there at the back of the nose. But the malt base smells very, very smooth and almost quite creamy. Like I say, there's not too much more to report on it than this. Do we have hops in this beer? I do get a little bit of grassiness out of this, but it says no, there's no hops in this. So as I've told you before, a lot of these modern breweries, when they do the sour beers like this, a lot of them just don't add any hops. But in Germany, traditionally, what they would do is they would add like they would usually add both an older hop and also one hop that, well, both would be the same thing, but they tend to add older hops so it doesn't overpower the sourness of the beer, but they also add low alpha acid hops, and again that's just to not overpower the sourness. So yeah, the aroma that comes off of this, I think, is really nice. I mean, so any hoppy notes you get out of this are a little bit placebo, but I always find with these beers I do get a little bit of kind of floral note, but I also get a wee bit of grassiness in there as well. So yeah, it's quite interesting how you still get that even though there aren't hops in the beer. So yeah, I would say this has a really nice kind of yogurty, fruity aroma to it. This tartness is coming from the raspberries, like I said, but overall it just smells like a really quite nice beer, I have to say. So thumbs up to Spike Brewery for the aroma of this one. So yeah, let's have a taste of this then and see how we get on. This one is the Madizm. They're calling it a fruity sour with raspberry, mango and passion fruit added to the brew, coming in at 5% ABV. Let's have a taste of this and see how we go. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Oh yeah. That is pretty nice actually. It's definitely, I mean, it does come across as more, it's almost like a hybrid between like one of these big fruity Berliner Weisse things and more of a kind of kettley sour. It's almost like somewhere in the middle of this actually. And that's quite interesting. I'm going to say straight away, this is a nice beer. It's not really like many things that I can compare it to actually. I can't think off the bat what I would compare this beer to be honest with you. It's really interesting. So yeah, this beer, it comes in on your first sip, you do get a little bit of that puckering quality to it, and like I said, with these beers, you really need to let them open up a little bit before you. You really just need to let them open up a little bit before you kind of judge them, if you like, because sour beers on the first sip, they're always kind of madly sour, if you like, but then when you let them open up a wee bit, that's when you start to understand what they're all about. So yeah, where to start with this one then? We'll start with the malty side of the beer, as we always do. You know that if you watch this channel, I'm a sucker for a good malty beer. But yeah, straight away with this one then, you can feel that nice, smooth, white bready quality. That kind of blankets the middle of your tongue. In the middle third of your palate, you can really feel the oats and the smoothness of the oats there, kind of forming the base of the beer. It does develop a little bit more of that kind of, creamy, yogurty sort of thing as you progress further into the aftertaste for sure. But yeah, it's the big kind of smooth creaminess of the oats, and it does sort of thicken up again as you go further into the aftertaste as well. The oatiness kind of spreads further back into the back third of your palate too, which is kind of interesting. And on the very back edge of the tongue, you do get just a little bit of that sort of wheaty bitiness to the beer, which is quite interesting. But yeah, overall, I think it's fair to say the malt base of this one is pretty smooth. And in terms of it being about, if we're trying to figure out what the style of this beer is, I think the way that these guys are describing it is more accurate. It's not kind of typical Berliner Weisse, but then these days we're kind of used to the Berliner Weisses and the Goses being really thick and everything like this. This beer does have a little bit of the more kind of kettle sour type element to it, where it's it's just got a little bit more wetness and oiliness to it. And I do like this actually. This is almost like an interesting hybrid between a kind of kettle sour and one of these big thick creamy Berliner Weisses. So yeah, I do like how this goes together. As I said, the malt base here, there's not too much more to say about it. I always find that sour beers are a little bit more kind of straightforward, at least the kind of more modern ones like this, Some of the Lambics and the Flanders Reds and stuff like this, they've got some really interesting subtleties and stuff, but these more modern sours I think are more kind of straight shooting, and it's all about how well the flavours blend together. These beers are, as I say, more straightforward in terms of their flavour composition, but I really like how all the flavours kind of cross over in this one. So this beer does get a thumbs up from me. The malty backbone that the beer has is very nice. Now let's focus on the fruits and stuff like that now. So yeah, back corners of the palate you do get a little, I do find there's a wee bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward along the side of the tongue, there's not a lot going on. You might get a little touch of floral aromaticity on the front corners of the palate, then round the front curve of the tongue the beer is just a little bit more kind of lighter and grassy. Like I said, this beer doesn't have hops in it, so those things are a little bit placebo, to be honest with you, but the fruity side of this beer is very nice, and you can tell straight away with this one that the fruit has been added into the brew. I don't think this one has, I think that what quite a few breweries do, especially with these big, thicker, kind of creamy sour beers, I think they do add the fruit into the brew, but they also add just a little touch of flavour essence just to kind of round it off a little bit against the kind of thicker malt base that they have. This one I think is pure, like fruit puree or something like this. I think that's what they're doing in here. Obviously when it comes to beer it's chemistry, so you want a big surface area so your reactions are efficient and quick and things like that. So yeah, for me I'm pretty sure this one is just like straight up fruit puree or something that's been put into the brew here. So let's examine that fruity side of the beer then. So yeah, I think for me, the way you can always tell that it's pure fruit or puree or whatever that's been added to the brew, what it always does is it gives you a really wet edge around the kind of mouthfeel. And if you have a beer that's got hops in it, such as a fruit IPA, you'll always find that the juiciness of the fruit comes out on the edge of the tongue, and it suppresses the IBU of the beer a little bit, so you just feel wetter on the edge of the tongue, and you get that with this beer, but there's no hops in this one, as we've said. But yeah, on the kind of edge of the tongue, for me, it's the mango, that soft kind of mango flavour on the kind of round the edge of the tongue there. It's the soft mango that kind of sits there. As I've always said to you, I find the fruity part of these beers comes out on the front third of your tongue. So on the back half of that front third of your tongue, for me, that's where the passion fruit is kind of sitting there. And it's almost like on that border region between middle third and front third of your palate, you've almost got a kind of it's almost like a kind of smoothie type thing there. So you've really got a little bit of that kind of slightly stronger passion fruity smoothie type quality. And as you move towards the front half of that front third of your tongue. Then it's a little bit more kind of, you get a wee bit more of a kind of slightly oily raspberry note out of this one, and as I say, it's the raspberry, I think, that brings the tartness to these beers. I've always found that it's berries that are the more tart things. I've always found that sours that are more tropical orientated are not as kind of puckering and tart and things like that. So yeah, the raspberry notes are the thing that are really giving this beer the tartness, but it's quite a nice juicy raspberry. But to be honest, I don't find the Swedish raspberries as sharp as the Scottish ones. I've not come across raspberries that are sharper than the Scottish ones right enough, but the Swedish raspberries have a lovely juiciness to them. I have to say, I like that. I like it how you can try different fruits from different countries and they just taste slightly different. But yeah, you might get the impression of a few sort of red curranty type flavours to this beer as well. Obviously there's not red currants in here, but you do get these kind of flavours out of it, and around the kind of edge of the tongue, like I said, you get that softer, quite smooth mango flavour there. So it's really interesting how the three fruits in this beer just come out differently, but they all contribute to the flavour really nicely. I mean, the whole beer, I've had mango and passion fruit sours that come across as really creamy and just very, very smooth, but the raspberry gives you a little bit more kind of oiliness to the beer. And I think that adds a really interesting aspect to it. It's quite interesting how adding one berry can really change the composition of the beer quite a little bit, actually. So yeah, this is a really, really nice beer in terms of how everything goes together. I really like this one, and I look forward to seeing what other sours Spike Brewery bring out over the next little while. So I will need to keep an eye on that. We know in Gothenburg, of course, there's some very good sour beer breweries. You've got Morgondagens, you've got Fermented Arna quite close by. My brain's not working, and Duck Pond are doing some really good stuff as well. There's you've got the Wizard brewing things. You've got Örebro Bryghus away up in the north. You have Yemadal and Hantverksbryggeri down here in Skåne. You've got Brekeriet. There's very good sour beer breweries in Sweden, and this one to me, this sour, if there are other ones that are going to be like this as well, it does seem that they're trying to combine the more kind of sweet and creamy sours that are quite popular with the sort of more old school kettle sour. So this could be an interesting route for Spike Brewery to go down, actually. I really like what this beer is sort of trying to achieve, if you like. I think it does it really quite well. But in terms of the mouthfeel of this beer then, I think this one, what would we say about this? Yeah, it's kind of bottom end and mid-bodied. The carbonation is very, very smooth. The mouthfeel overall, I think it's got a bit of an oiliness to this one. It's quite slick, but at the same time it's quite oily. In terms of hoppy bitterness and stuff like that, or IBUs, obviously this beer will technically have 0 IBUs, but I think it's got at least, it's got about 5 or maybe something like that. You do get a little bit of I do get a wee touch of bitterness from some of the fruits and things like that in this one, so I would be very surprised if this is precisely 0 IBUs. The malt is, like I said, very smooth and almost quite creamy in a way. And the fruits, like I say, the lovely soft kind of slightly creamy notes, and you've got a wee bit of just an oily juiciness coming out of the beer as well, actually. So yeah, I like this one. I really like how all of this goes together. So it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. I do look forward, like I said, to seeing what Spike Brewery have to offer on the sour side of things in the future. So yeah, really interesting one, really kind of an interesting hybrid of a style. It's got a few kind of Berliner Weisse type elements to it, but I think it's also got a little bit of the more kind of kettle sour type cleanliness and oiliness, if that makes sense. So yeah, really quirky beer this, and I do like beers on the channel that make me think a little bit, as you guys will know, having watched for a wee while. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one was the Madizm, a 5% kind of fruity sour. I think we'll go with the Spike definition. This one, a fruity sour, coming in, as I say, 5% ABV with raspberry, mango and passion fruit added to the brew from Spike Brewery in the Gamlestaden area in Gothenburg on the west coast of Sweden. So yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comments section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Spike Brewery. We will return to these guys fairly soon, I'm sure, but in the meantime, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys very soon. Until the next time, Slange, School, cheers. Make sure you check out this one at the Madizm from Spike Brewery in Gothenburg. Cheers.